Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm deciding I'm going to say good evening. I don't care when you're listening to this or watching it. It's going out as a premiere on either a 7 or 8:30, so I'm going with a good evening. Welcome, but welcome particularly to this wonderful person sitting next to me, Clare Cape. How are you?
I'm good, and I'm just thinking the sun is over the yardarms somewhere in the world.
It is. So technically, we could, I suppose, have a drink if we wanted to, couldn't we? We could, but maybe not. Okay, Nate, we'll celebrate this by having a traditional rum now that the shadow of the yard and the arm is... All right, I won't drink anything. I'm very interested to have you in on these podcasts because I read some... obviously, we're doing these political ones because of the upcoming elections. But I read some good stuff that you were talking about in the newspaper, so I was I don't really care what political persuasion you have. You have? That's like you are and have. I'm impressed and interested. Ashley O'Neill and a few other, Nick, who's an independent, Ashley O'Neill is a conservative, great. You're all talking about, as far as I'm concerned, in my experience in sustainable development, you're talking the right language for the future of our young people, our ecosystems and everything else. Over to you, Claire.
Yeah, so it's interesting you say that because I think local politics kind of, in a way, transcends party political, and we do need to be cognizant of what our local people think and say, kind of overlaid with our own beliefs because, I don't go for, what's it called, cognitive dissonance, all of that sort of nonsense. I have to do what I believe in.
Yeah.
And I really believe that we owe the future generations of Chippenham a better future than a massive suburb.
Yeah, it's not looking good, is it?
So that's been my main target of effort over recent, actually months. Yeah. Intensely over the last few weeks, but months. Yeah. Working with colleagues, understanding what the proposal really means, and using social media to get the views of the people of Chippenham. And the people of Chippenham are very loud in saying, actually, we don't want this.
Yeah, no,
it's
incredible,
impressive,
isn't it? And I guess that's because people like yourselves are taking the time to make everyone aware of the issues. I'm not impressed, I have to say, with how I want to separate people from policy or from their roles. So Wiltshire Council as a word or as a whatever is made up of individuals who presumably have information from elsewhere that give them the best hope of making the best decisions. But their consultation process has left a lot to be desired. Yeah. So what's been floating your boat about that? Because it's quite interesting, isn't it?
It is interesting, and there is a track record of poor performance on consultation ever since I've been a councillor, almost 4 years now. There have been several consultations, and on several occasions I've challenged and said, hang on a minute, the questions aren't right, they're not balanced, they're not actually seeking a range of opinions. And going back to the HIF and the local plan, there's an appalling lack of options. Yeah. And I've said to them, I've stood up at, I can't stand up at, I can.
You can on Zoom, but no one can see you. You can see your midriff. What are you doing, Claire?
Stand up for a nearly throw my computer out the window. No, metaphorically stand up on Teams on the Wiltshire Council and Cabinet, and asked, why do we not have a full range of options presented here? And actually, you need to go back and rework this whole case in the light of COVID and the climate emergency.
Yeah, why do you say that about in light of COVID?
Well,
the climate emergency, the climate breakdown, absolutely, and none of these things should have gone forward in anyone's, if they were clear thinking. But why particularly because of COVID?
Well, in my own experience, I work as well as
What do you do?
I work for NHS Digital.
If you say the words NHS, you do, melt me. I can't. It's like Teresa Hutton. When I found out what she did, I thought, oh my God, it's just fantastic.
Well,
Tell me what you do.
So I trained as a nurse.
Wow.
I worked as a nurse for a long time in lots of different roles, including managing operating theatre and day surgery, and lots of different hospitals. And then I decided that I'd got to a stage where I'd been raked out of bed enough times for emergency operations, so I won't get into the gory details, in the middle of the night. And I got into project work, basically because out of making things better for patients. I won't go into too much detail, but I kind of moved around different roles around service improvement, and then I worked for a national organisation about modernising the way that we do stuff in hospitals, and several strategic health authorities and different roles. Patient public involvement was one of them, and then I kind of landed up with NHS Digital a little bit by accident. I was stupid from South West Strategic Health Authority, and what I do there is benefits realisation, which sounds really boring, but it's actually understanding how the technology enables people to work in better ways, and then figuring out the value of that.
Wow.
So a lot of it's to do with working with clinicians to sort of understand that.
Fantastic.
So it's a little bit technical, but it's
but all of those component parts. It's like Catherine McDermott, who works as a administrator for Virgin, which I guess, although I don't think there should be any private parts of the NHS, does a great job. Same as Teresa Hutton, working within a. Hopefully, everyone in this country would value the every aspect of the NHS. That's not to say that I just think blindly that everything that's ever done under the name of the NHS or anyone else is perfect. That's why you're working on it, looking at being more efficient, more effective. But what do you think then, with all your experience, of this interesting pay rise that the nurses have been given?
It's an interesting one.
Or the whole across the board.
Yeah, I mean, if I put myself back into the position of a sort of reasonably senior nurse in the past, and if I was still doing that, I would have been on the front line over the last year. I would no doubt be working in intensive care, and I would be as traumatised and exhausted as people that I see in the media, and I would be thinking, do you know what, 1% is a complete insult.
I was going to say, it's a little bit difficult.
It's a little bit difficult for me to comment because my pay is connected with nurses' pay, and I don't feel that what I've done over the last year deserves anything different from anybody else in the world. So I think that problem around the 1% applies particularly to those that are working on the front line.
Absolutely.
Doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, porters.
I was going to say
everybody.
porters. Please mention cleaners.
Absolutely.
How do we, you know what I mean? I just think that sometimes, I'm not saying you would have done, same with sewage, but I keep saying it when I write articles, whatever, sewage workers and refuge workers in our society, but in hospitals, every single person you come across, if they're not there, something ain't going to work properly.
Yeah, I mean,
we're all at risk.
When I think back to when I worked on a ward, and we absolutely relied on the catering staff to help make sure that patients got a decent feed. And if you don't get a good food, you
absolutely. And I think if you haven't got good morale when you're helping, and bless, when my mother was in, bless her, when she was in her last days over at John Radcliffe, first at the Western over in Swindon. You want the people you love to be in the care of people that love what they do, and I think it's only fair then, as a society, that we justly reward those. There should never be a discussion about pay around education or health, and I think that it should be like a percentage of our GDP every year. Should not be in the hands of any political party, political whatever, for all sorts of reasons, but the idea that, you know, this is how much money we've generated as a country this year, every year, a certain percentage, without question, is going to go into, which I think is, please tell me if you think this is wrong, but the most important areas of our society, educating our young and looking after every single one of us, with every health condition you can think of, including heart, brain, air ambulance, that should be paid for. We shouldn't have to raise money. We shouldn't have charity shops for heart. We should have it. Everyone's got a heart, except the Conservatives. Everyone but the... I know you can't say that. I just did. I know, I've got this little Tourette thing going on.
No,
Don't worry about
you
it.
can't. You're the interview.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I got this totally wrong. I thought that... No, it's not... Again, you know, enough people have heard me warble on every day about party political. I just don't dig it. I think it's at its day. I don't understand at a local level why anyone would even want to be associated with the national parties, both Liberal, Democrat, now Labour. I mean, when Jeremy Corbyn was there, at least he had principles which he's held since he started. I think Lib Dems' principles are fantastic, but, you know, the unfortunate thing is as soon as they got into power, they did exactly what no one wanted them to do, which was give up on the you know, it's one of them ones, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, that, because actually it was only after the coalition that society could see
what you'd stop them do.
What we'd stop them doing.
Yeah.
But
I can agree.
I don't really want to go into it now, but we didn't really make enough of that. And I remember telling our leadership, we need to be making more about what we achieved in the coalition.
It's too easy for them to apportion as much blame. They don't care.
But it's...
Particularly people like Cameron, Boris Johnson, people like that. I don't, the reason I'm saying that is because of their backgrounds. I'm not sure, I'm saying this like a buffoon, but I'm sure that somewhere along the line, they're decent people. I'm not sure. But they have, with all the wealth and how they got their wealth and how they've made their money and how they've inherited money from slavery, all sorts of ways of looking at what they've done, they could have made a better job of being more humane. And I think that you guys, and I'm not going to put you in the same category, because I see you as a local person who works for the NHS, which basically goes without any reproach at all. And I get why people join parties, because I've met other councillors, prospective councillors, not just this time, all the time, in meetings and stuff, who say, well, you know, you never get anything done if you're an independent. I think you should only be independent. So I think at local level, right up to county, you should only be independent.
Yeah, I mean, some towns have chosen to go that way. Yeah, and... Melksham is now...
I love it. I love Melksham. I've done some great work over there.
Yeah, I mean,
great
I haven't worked in that way. I've only worked in a party political way. But having said that, on Chippenham Town Council, we actually align more around an issue than...
You'd hope, but you see what I'm saying? One would hope that was a normal democratic process, that you've got a group of people that come together. What's the issue? You know, is the issue going to be solved financially, or is it going to be solved by whatever? And you look at it and you take good advice to them, you know, from people like yourselves and other people outside, and say, okay, look, we're representing the community. These are the issues. How do you think is the best way? Now, I've met a lot of councillors in my time, and I cannot believe that that they've had the time or the experience to come up with any informed ideas, and then people say, yeah, but surely that's what the officers of councillors are for.
It's really interesting you say that, because I think that's one of the areas that the job that I do now really helps me as a councillor, because going back to what I was saying about benefits realisation, to put it in a really straightforward way, a benefit is a problem going away.
Yeah.
So we need to understand what the problem is in order to solve it. And we don't just say, okay, we're going to have this, that, or the other widget.
Yeah.
Okay, what are we not having good enough information about patients reaching the pharmacist, for example? Okay, how might we fix that? Look at different options, come up with the one that delivers what the against the problem in the best value way. Doesn't sound like rocket science, does it?
No, but it sounds like a practical application of what's needed.
If you go back to the local plan, what's the problem we're trying to solve? An inflated number of houses that isn't even true.
Yeah.
Where are the options?
Yeah.
There aren't any.
Yeah.
We've just landed on a solution.
Yeah.
That's why I find the whole thing so frustrating, because it's basic. It's
Yeah.
like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Then we work out the solution, and
Yeah.
we make up use cases and all the rest of it, and start getting technical. But if you try and break it down into those two steps, then you're much more likely to come up with the right answer, instead of what I keep saying. This is the wrong answer to the wrong problem.
Absolutely. Do you not think, again, this is the problem with party politics? You have in the case of the Conservatives, so any local Conservative, please don't feel offended by this, because I don't believe that you could possibly be a real Conservative and live in this town. You couldn't. You don't come from the right demographic, you don't have the right history, and I don't think you do. I think you'd have to be a member of the elites, you'd have to be a member of the 1% to truly be a Tory, to truly be...
Yeah, you're probably right, actually, because I don't see the kind of behaviour that we see in the cabinet.
Absolutely. I can't believe that you could. I've known a few people that are Tories, listen to me saying it, bandits, but that are Conservatives. And you just go, really though? Are you? Can you possibly be? You can't be, can you? Because they don't. I'm sure that there's a whole lot of propaganda that gets people thinking that we're Conservatives. It's like, well, you're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a colleague of mine in West London, really lovely Indian lady, well, of Indian origin. I'm not quite sure when she came to this country as a child. And somehow she got involved in standing for the council where she lives as a Tory.
Mm.
Oh, and she phoned me up and she said, "Oh, Claire, I'm really excited, I'm going to be..." And I'm like, really? Tories? Are you... Because I knew her enough to think, well, that's not really your values. And then, of course, she wanted to know how to do campaigning and all the rest of it. And I'm like, I don't think I really want to go there for my opposition party, even though it's in a different part of the country.
Yeah.
So I just sort of laid it on. You need a lot of data to really understand what you're doing. And
I keep banging on.
She didn't get in, but I mean, I think she felt she fought quite a good campaign with her colleagues, but I just thought she's been picked by the wrong party.
Yeah, and I think that there's all the machinations of how majorities are reached, and I keep banging on about this. I'm going to ask you the same questions I've asked previous people. I think that you shouldn't be allowed to be an MP unless you've lived in a constituency for more than 5 years. You shouldn't be able to send your children, if you have them, to any other school but the one in your constituency. You shouldn't be able to have the medicine, NHS, except for the provision in your constituency. This enlightened vested self-interest, and you should have to have served on either the town, parish or county council. This enlightened vested self-interest would mean that any votes that were ever taken about any issues would always have those politicians going, well, I know the people, I've lived there at least 5 years, I know the people, I know some of the needs, hopefully all the needs. I also know that if I don't make sure that the school in my constituency is equally funded as everyone else, my own children are going to suffer, my own family is going to suffer. I think that there's a massive gulf between some of the upper elites, as they would call themselves, and the 1% and the rest of us as a nation. So to stop them using their money from likes of whoever to fund campaigns, I think that there should be a catalogue that's sent to our doors on recycled paper, or it comes on the internet, which has got an A4 sheet just telling you about each party. You don't even have to say which MP it is, because it's just these are the principles of Conservatives, these are the Liberal Democrats, and so on and so forth. Then you read them, there's no campaigns, no one gets bored by party political broadcasts. You can go to a channel if you want, like they set up a channel campaign thing. There should be hustings every year or every 4 years or whatever, even more regularly. But the idea of taking big money, because that's what happens in America, isn't it? You can actually determine the outcome of an election by how much money's in the pot.
Huge.
Yeah, totally. And it's happening here. It's happened here with the Saatchi during Thatcher. I mean, crikey, what they must be thinking. I can't believe these people simultaneously believe there's an afterlife and there's any going to be any punishment for some of the decisions. They can't. Those two things don't But anyway, what do you think about the idea of that not being an MP unless you've been in a blah blah constituency for 5 years?
I hadn't really thought about it like that. I did talk to Tessa Munt. She used to be an MP, lived in Wales.
Wales, yeah.
Because the Liberal Democrats were always looking for more people to stand as MPs.
Yeah. Especially in the West Country, it's quite a stronghold, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I talked to her at length about it, not because I was considering it particularly, but several people had asked me to think about it. So
Being
I
MP?
thought, yeah.
Yeah, I could see it.
So I did think about it, and I talked to Tessa, and she said if you're going to do it, she said you really need to have 3 election cycles in you, because you're not going to get there the first time, and you might not get there the second time. And I was thinking, well, if I do that, then I'm not going to be an MP until I'm way into my 70s. So
20, 30 years' time. Stop it, you. Come on.
You stop it. So I kind of thought, nah. And actually, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, actually, I'm much more interested in local politics and being a councillor, and it's a different thing.
Yeah.
So if you're a good councillor, it doesn't necessarily make you a good MP, and if
Vice
you're
versa.
So I get what you're saying about being rooted in the community.
Well, at least 5 years. You couldn't change your nationality unless you've been here 5 years. How could you possibly? And I'm not. I think Michelle Donlan, bless her. I've spoken to her a few times. I think she's a decent human being. What do I think? Do I think she's a Tory? Do I hell? Look at her background. How the hell could she possibly be a Tory? I mean, I'd love to get them in a. I also think that politicians need to have polygraphs regularly. I think I'm being serious. I think that they should be. Go through a whole cycle of having to do lie detectors just to keep it on the level, because there's just no way. Yeah, there's no way in the world they should
try that on me this afternoon.
No, we see, but exactly. But the thing is that you see, you don't come across as someone I'd feel the need to actually, But if I was gonna, there are a few local politicians.
Well, I've never thought about having a lie detector.
But wouldn't you think? Do you think it would certainly? I mean, imagine Boris Johnson would never turn up to Parliament. Boris, you get a drug test and you get a lie detector test. Listen, I'm off to the hairdressers. Won't be in for a while. He's not going to do it, is he? So. But I do think they need to be held more accountable. And it's not because I want some war against politicians. I just know if everything that the political system, the political class has done up to this point in history, and I'm using the COVID, because I've talked about I don't know if you've seen the thing about we want to have on the 21st of June, it's also, the longest day, but it's also when Boris said that we can have large gatherings. It's pity he didn't think about that last year when they were about to have Cheltenham and the Europe, whatever, the Champions League match. But anyway, him having this us having an unlock reset festival. Part of the reset is what are we going to learn from past mistakes? And I mean right across the board, environmentally, socially, emotionally, because there's going to be massive problems with mental health. So even so when you were saying about COVID has changed what you were thinking about as far as the HIF and the local distributor roads and stuff, for me it's like all bets are off. There's going to be so many people suffering, particularly young people, from mental health. They were anyway, but they're just compounded.
I mean, I've spoken to teachers.
Yeah, blessed teachers.
Obviously we're not canvassing at the moment, so I'm thinking back to sort of before Christmas, and by the same token, I can walk through Pewsham and I talk to people. And teachers I've spoken to are really worried. Really worried. And, I sort of think, it's been a pretty tough year. But at our age, a year is quite quick. I don't know about you, but I think back to when I was a child, teenager, a year was a long time. And kids are very social animals. I mean, I can't imagine what it must have been like for them to go back to school yesterday after over 2 months, 3 months really, if you count Christmas. And that would have been an eternity.
Oh yeah, we work with vulnerable kids. That's part of our day thing. So we have a lot of contact with them, and some have come in over the lockdown. So it hasn't quite been as strange, I think, for some of ours, because they've been out of the school system for years, some of them anyway.
Sure.
But I totally agree with you, with the lessons,
you're
teachers.
kind of just regular school kids that just like to hang out with their mates.
Yeah.
Really difficult.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I mean, I think, you know, if they're talking about the sort of lost time, I don't think that's right. You know, I've heard people talking on telly and radio and stuff that actually, you know, they've learnt different skills and are probably much more self-sufficient than you or I were at that age. Yeah. But they have missed out on
the socialisation, absolutely. So we do anyway. We run holiday programmes, so we'll be doing our sort of. I'm loath to call it a summer school. Every year I'm loath to call it a summer school, but it helps in a way to describe it. This year it will help it more than ever. There needs to be a coming together, an ability. We do creative workshops because we want creative young people and adults, because we work with adults as well, going into the world and looking at creative solutions, non-conflicting, you know, socially equitable solutions to every problem, whether it's
because
cutting up a pie.
Because thinking is so important, and that's not what you're going to get by an online learning for geography or history or maths or whatever it is. You just, it's probably reasonably rote. It's stuff they have to learn, you know.
Of course, if
it's important,
but it's
that real.
It's the interaction, isn't it?
It's the creative stuff that is so.
And the idea of people coming together over different ideas that aren't by rote, that actually need the collaboration when you bounce
just
ideas.
The word was coming into my head. The
idea of and today is a joyous day because we had, you know, we started to have our young people back in more, and they've all changed. And we've been on Zoom to them. We've been on phones. Say we, you know, I'm generally on phones. I wouldn't go near a computer possibly if you ever paid me, but pay me and I'll see. But the idea of seeing them, they've physically grown, intellectually grown, and it's like, wow. It's really interesting. Like they've revisited us, even though we've been in constant contact. They are, and I guess like everyone, their experiences have helped form them, and that's going to be an interest. It's going to be plays and films and books, isn't there? For a long time.
Well, if you think that, you know, that for this generation, it's not the same, but it's the equivalent to the World War that our grandparents.
Absolutely. Oh, it's a big trauma thing, isn't it? Change of the world, I agree. And I think lots of things change after those.
Yeah.
So I'm saying the reset, there's so many aspects. I can't believe that anyone that witnessed some of the temporary rewilding of towns and cities throughout the world, where wild animals were starting to wander down high streets, where the waters...
Goats that went into London, though.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, it's... So dolphins and whales, Maya's from Croatia, so they've got a fantastic football team and brilliant seaside, the Adriatic. That's had whales and all sorts of mammals coming back into it because there's no big cruise ships coming up and down. We kind of really got to work out what our interrelationship is with nature, because I bang on about this for years and do lots of workshops on it, but we are a part of nature, not apart from nature. And anyone that's looked at all those... It was almost a Extinction Rebellion dream, wasn't it? That the idea that you could stop aeroplanes, that you could stop all this nonsense going on, and people go, "You can't stop the economy." I don't know why they were talking like this, Claire, but imagine it was someone like this saying, "You can't stop the economy, the markets, this, that," and they go, "Really, can't you?" Oh, look, guess what? You can, and you did, and look what's happened. Everything's got better.
I like to think of it as, agree with me or not. But if you think of the sort of Gaia theory, you know, it's Mother Earth saying, "Do you know what? You're trashing this world.
One last chance.
Here's something to make you stop
and think." I mean, God, I agree with you.
And it actually...
I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah.
I know I would, because you're totally right. Now, some people listening to this might go, "What are they talking about, this Gaia theory?" We'll check it out. shall I get Jules to do this? He hates it when I do it.
I'm not an expert in it,
No,
but
me
I
neither.
have read a little bit about
no, me too.
But it just
Makes sense. There you go.
It's and the planet will look after us. We talk about saving the planet. No,
Yeah,
we
no
talk
ways. Save
we're
ourselves,
talking about
I love you.
humanity.
That's exactly it. It's our
The
humanity.
planet will kill us off.
Yeah.
And will recover.
Yeah.
Like it did after all she did after all the other extinctions.
Absolutely.
And it's
so if it spins at 1,000 miles an hour through ever an expanding space, if the sun burns, as long as it burns, we have that interrelationship. Say we don't. We're the only. We are bizarre, aren't we?
We are so arrogant.
Yeah, and destroying our own habitat.
We
are
absolutely
crazy.
We're so as a species. This is a bit wacky. But we are arrogant like Tories. It's a terrible thing to say.
Oh my God, I cannot believe, Claire, you've come on this show and you're insulting the Tories. That's my job.
No. I'm just saying it's a thoughtless and it's
removed from it.
It's removed from the consequences.
Yes. It's as if you can go to another planet. I've been in lots of different.
Why do you think they're going to Mars? It's all right. We'll trash this one. We'll just go to another one.
Right. So this painting here, Lost Humanity. Right. It says up there, looking for the stars for a hope, the sign of life. Right. Or hope, actually, not the sign of life. There's a whole bit of that song, and it's the actual theme tune to this podcast about looking at Mars. This was written a few years ago, but lovely Melanie Seacombe did it and sang it for us. But those words are we have a strange capacity as human beings to somehow, and I think it's partly our education, social education, our indoctrination, and that's partly the responsibility of hundreds of years of organised religion, whatever that good it did, and then organised politics, who've basically been indoctrinating and filling us full of ridiculous ideas. All of those economic ideas that do not and have not, since the Industrial Revolution, taken into the account the detriment or the erosion of the natural environment, whilst creating the industry which has taken fossil fuels that have been embedded onto the crust, putting them into the biosphere.
And expect everything to be okay. And we do it
or at least maybe they didn't expect it to be okay or didn't know it was causing damage. But when as soon as they did, you think we go, whoa,
hang on a
we should
minute,
stop.
But it's human nature. We see everybody on a micro level just dropping their crisp packet.
Yeah.
People don't think about the consequences of anything they do.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm sorry to say, quite an arrogant
Absolutely.
behaviour. And if we could all be a little bit more mindful of the consequences of everything that we do for other people, a lot of the problems that we have in this community, in Wiltshire, in the country, in the world, would be on a lower, smaller scale.
So we have to then...
We wouldn't solve everything, I'm not stupid, but...
No, but we've got to start with what you've said earlier on. When you're doing a consultation, surely you've got to identify a need or a problem or a challenge first, and then agree on a solution.
Yeah.
You can't, as often happened, and I think it's because it comes from head office or head party that they say, right, where have we got our councils? Oh, we've got them, Wiltshire's always conservative. They don't do that. I do that. Wiltshire's always conservative. We can try out loads of ridiculously crass and inhumane, destroy the youth service. I mean, good
I know.
God, above and heaven. Talk about false economy.
And if you can't invest in
your
young
future,
people,
if you can't invest in our future, what are you doing?
Yeah, young people and health and social care.
There you go.
If you don't do that,
you're finished. Now, this is where I get my thought of, if you're a real conservative, and you happen to live in an ex sort of slave owner's mansion house somewhere in this country or in the Cayman Islands, wherever it is you're doing with your money, and you're not stinking around your community, and you're shipping in people that don't really belong to those communities as your representatives, of course they're going to carry out your orders. If your orders are, look, we want to impose austerity on the masses because our mates in banking have absolutely, and I'm not going to say any swear words here, just so in case you're worried. But I am going to say this. Our mates in banking have absolutely taken the absolute whatever out of us all, destroyed, the illusion. What's your thoughts on the economy? Because it is just an illusionary thing, isn't it? We do not need to have a stock market, do we?
Well, when you think about it, we were in a mess 12, 13 years ago.
And again, look at the stock market before the pandemic. It was going to do it again. It's always going to do it because it's a boom and bust. It has to be.
Boom and bust is the nature of it, and anybody thinks you can break boom and bust.
Well,
but when you think about it, we were in that mess. Then we spent 10, 12 years trying to pay it off through austerity.
Yeah.
And where did that get us? Not very far.
No, and more mental health, more people died, poverty related. If people were to really look at the statistic, I can't say that word, statistics of how many extra deaths related to poverty because of austerity, even Theresa May should be arrested and put in there for corporate manslaughter, let alone David Cameron just because.
Yeah.
Him and his
and then
picket.
so we spent 12 years trying to get back to where we started, and then COVID-19 comes along, and now we've spent a heap.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, that you can
Billions
find
and billions.
that. How do you find that? Where does that come from?
I'm hopeless on numbers, but
They're just made up.
Yeah, it feels like they're
they're made
up.
Well, there used to be a gold mark, didn't there? It used to be attached to the value of our money used to be attached to the price of gold. It hasn't been since whenever. And guess what? We could literally, as long as we've got the ink and all the other stuff, we could just print money forever.
Yeah, and then there's wonderful cronyism around the test and trace.
Test and trace, PPE. So check this out, people.
The amount they spent on that, and I haven't checked the numbers, so I'm not going to quote them. But then the amount spent on that, how many nurses would that have paid for?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, there is a bit of me that thinks that they somehow, again, they don't possibly meet in well, they probably do, dark, smoky rooms full of old kids, sitting around. You can imagine William Rees-Mogg lying down on a lounger and go, I've got an idea. Let's see what we can get away with. Let's see if we absolutely, in the middle of a pandemic, can give as many of our mates contracts as possible. People that had never even heard the letters PPE put together, let alone understood how to make it, and go, oh yeah, I can do that, absolutely. What is it you need to do? Give me the money first and I'll go and get it. Yeah. Good. They did that, not good. But the whole idea of this redecorating Downing Street is... Boris, can I address you, mate, a day to come back to Chippenham? You think that's appropriate? On the one hand, your mates are giving 1% pay rise to the people that saved the majority of people through this pandemic.
Including him.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that for 1 second. That you think he uses the NHS? Boris Johnson uses the NHS.
He was in St Thomas's, which
my two children were born.
Where I trained.
Two of my children. Well, we both know it. Two of us. I can't believe that he would have. Well, okay. So I'll reverse my theory then. If he was so happy with the NHS, do you think he has got private medical health care? Him, his father, his family, his sisters.
Probably. I don't know.
Right. Well, I'll put some money on it. Okay. I would be surprised if people at that level of the Tory party use the NHS as a natural thing. Was he embarrassed into a situation where, which bit of the pandemic did he not understand? Okay, Boris, what you've got to do is we've got to not have people touching each other. Does that mean we've got to shut all the airports and all the ports and stop big football, stop shaking hands? Yes. Well, I'm bloody well not going to do it. Look at me, I'm Boris Johnson, I am as fit as they come, and now I'm touching people in a way that even nobody wants to be touched.
His mate over the pond was
crazed.
Same
Have you ever read any of his books, his dad's books?
I haven't.
No, nor have I.
I've got a few books piled up on the floor that I.
Yeah, we should go to burn as soon as.
But
he's quite an interesting guy, isn't he? Old Stanley, bless him. Isn't he into the whole idea of sort of population control? I'm not saying there's eugenics and stuff, but he's certainly into. I think if people have got time, they should read any books about about viruses and stuff that Stanley Johnson. I don't know. I'm just saying it's a crazy old world, isn't it?
And there are some crazy thoughts out there that come from somewhere and might spark a different crazy thought that might be more useful.
Yeah, but it does seem strange that there was this whole talk about herd immunity.
Yeah, I wonder where that came from.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So exactly that. So when you look at the pandemic, take it in isolation to everything else.
But you see, that was, I think, just poor understanding, because ultimately we will have herd immunity delivered through vax program.
Yeah.
I had my vax about 10 days ago.
Yeah, how'd you feel?
Great.
Fantastic. So we
I was so excited. It was a day out in Bristol.
Yeah. Funny enough, because we work with
all the shops were shut, all the bars were shut.
Exactly. Just a nice place that is changing.
Then I had to walk around the harbour.
Yeah.
Which made a change.
I bet. Yeah, because we work with very say vulnerable young people, etc., and some of them are particularly vulnerable, should we say, health-wise. So some of our younger members of our crew have got their vaccinations. 2 of them actually haven't felt very well. I woke up in the night feeling like I had a bit of a hangover. And by the morning I was fine. And your body has to do stuff to make it work. Yeah.
You know.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I thought it wasn't one of those. Because now we've got someone with a bit of medical thing. I thought those vaccines were quite new in the sense that they weren't giving you a bit of COVID. And
they're giving. I mean, I'm no expert on it. They're giving you a bit of the protein that makes your body create the antibodies. So the effort that your body is going through to do that can make you feel a bit not great.
Okay.
I won't use any other words, but yeah. But it's interesting. I'm going back. You know, I spoke about test and trace, which should have been delivered through local
NHS.
Public health.
Yeah.
You know, we have very good people that do public health. We have
on a week-to-week, day-to-day basis. Why weren't they engaged straight away?
Public Health England, I know some really good colleagues in Public Health England and locally in the council. But no, we have Dido, what's her name, make it all up from scratch. And
it almost begs belief until you
distrust. So I mean, obviously, I downloaded the app when it came because I knew that it was the right thing to do. But a lot of people were very wary of doing that. And then I don't know the exact figures, but I think it's only about a third of people have that app. So I don't know how well it's really working, and we're relying on local public health to pick up the test and trace where it's not been successful. Contrast that with the vaccination program. Now the government would have you think that they're personally going out and jabbing people in the arm. Actually, that's not the case. It's retired doctors, nurses, GPs, pharmacists. It was a pharmacist that gave me mine, working on their days off, and organised by the NHS.
Of course.
And of course the tech for it is done by the organisation I work for. I've not been involved in that. I don't know any more details than probably you do. But it's done by the NHS. Is the point that
as it should have been in the start.
So
same with the test and trace.
People think it's going well. You know, the numbers are there. The process seems to be constantly iterating the process, learning from. You know, there was that one that that had that variant that hadn't put the address on the thing. They'll have been right on that and sorted that out.
Should have been that way around the first time.
Yeah, but nevertheless, they managed to find the postcode. So you know. But again, I don't know the detail of exactly how that happened, but they sorted it out, and that fail-safe will now be, I'm sure, included. And it's a success because it's being done by the NHS.
People who know what they're doing. So it begs the question, or it begs belief without a doubt, but it also begs the question, considering some of these geezers and young ladies went to so-say good schools, how could it possibly been handled worse unless it was deliberate? Because you'd have to say, on the one hand, you'd have to hold your hands up if you're Boris and say, look, The fact of the matter is, I'm the wrong person at the wrong time, in the wrong situation. I thought I was coming into this, we picked straws when we were kids at Eton, and one of the dorms one night, there was a few pigs' heads, and a few of us were going, look, when we're older, you, Cameron, you naughty boy, you're going to have to be it for a while, I'll come in and we'll change the thing, mates, contracts, whatever, we'll have a right old laugh, and I'll see you in the bar afterwards. However, unfortunately, however this virus came about, because it's not about conspiracy theories. The fact is, like Portland down, like everywhere else,
it was going to happen sooner
well,
or later.
Of course, one way or the other. But if you happen to have, see, I like 9/11 straight away kind of worked out that those planes must have been full of fuel, full of people, and flown from a local airport. As I was watching the second plane going into the thing, I was like, wow, okay, this is what they, because I'm slightly crazed, I should imagine. But it didn't take me long to think out what would have been a part of the plan to have that, why would they have done it, where they have done it, and they're like, oh my God, it's horrendous. Same thing with this, it's like, wow, I bet you there's, I wonder, is there, I bet you, I wonder, is there a germ welfare or a lab nearby? Well, there apparently was. It's like, okay, so I was only coming up with some theories before, now they started coming out everywhere, and then there's Wuhan, and there's this, that, it's like, you're going, okay, right. However it came about, let's just imagine it was, and we should all stop eating animals for starters, or utilising them in farming or anything else. Let's just have plant-based everything. But we surely, looking as it spread across the world, the only rational response was to prepare. I know that the preparation for mass disasters wasn't done, or the PPE and everything else that's supposed to be, and that wasn't done, which is negligent, criminally negligent as it turns out. That none of the preparations that any logical, realistic human being would have come up with, like, guys, we're going to shut.
It's back to that arrogance thing again.
Or stupidity. Or deliberate. It has to be deliberate, arrogant, or stupid.
That sort of denial thing.
So you've got three areas.
Thinking about what's happened since then, since a year ago, I think we've just now got to stage, they've just finally worked out that you make a change and you study it, and you study it for long enough to see if it's made a difference, and then you do the next thing.
Yeah.
Now that is not rocket science, that is
basic,
really basic improvement methodology that I've used for years in my professional life. You make a change one at a time, you study the data, and you see if you've made an impact, and then you move on. And you work out which change you want to make, what hunch do you have of what's going to have the best impact, and you study that. You don't go tweaking every 5 minutes because you don't know what's made a difference then, because statistics will tell you you've got to look at it for a long enough period, and that's stuff that I use in my daily work. And I'm reasonably senior in the NHS, but not that senior. And I've studied it a little bit, but not to degree level or anything. It's pretty basic stuff, this. And yet it's taken them a year to figure that out.
So you exactly. So you're either going to say, for me, it's either it has to be deliberate, and therefore there has to be a financial payoff for them, and there has been in lots of ways. I mean, I think they should be arrested. I actually think they should be corporate manslaughter charges, and that for anyone following in their footsteps through the hallowed halls of Eton and everywhere else could go, you cannot mess on mass scale with people's lives. It's bad enough you kept people poor for this long, that in a international crisis, you've acted so irresponsibly, and if they say, well, we didn't know what was happening, you should have, you know what, they should have got every known politician, like a war cabinet, and had them all together so
they did that, they had Cobra, but guess who didn't bother going to Cobra?
If his name begins with Boris and ends with Johnson, I'm going to have to sing a little song.
Well, I think...
Time to sing a song?
That was the one.
That was the one that couldn't even go to Cobra. Exactly. So what I'm talking about, listen.
Irresponsible.
Boris, if you listen to this, which I know you are, because let's face it, you couldn't have anything else better to do.
Tag him when you...
Tag him, say, Boris, bruv, come here, have a little conversation, because there's no way, even through his... I mean, I stutter more than he does, but there again, I don't get paid the money. You're not wrong. You're being kind by saying it's arrogance. I can only sense, work with human beings all my life, and it's kind of like I can only sense there's a disconnect, and a lot of that's about their upbringing, and a lot about the attachment issues that they've got from
Well, I
being
only
set
say it's
away.
arrogance because that's what I observe. I
Yeah.
don't want to make judgments about people's characters.
Yeah.
It's not about what I
And I have to make much of a judgment about Boris Johnson. Just read his history.
I just see certain behaviours
Yeah.
and interpret them as
Yeah.
arrogance. I don't want to say that anybody is worse than that.
Yeah.
When I don't.
Well, you're a
have
kind and
Well-
lovely person, Claire.
I think
And isn't that what we all think about Liberal Democrats?
But isn't that what we all should be?
Oh, you would think.
Decent,
Wouldn't you think?
considerate. I'm not saying I am,
No,
particularly.
I've got an impression that you are. Not because you give me that, but I've read about you and I've talked to other people and now I've met you and think, oh yeah. I'm
Going back to the HIF. I mean, I did have somebody approach me on social media saying, well, I don't agree with you.
Mm.
And I thought, well, my business is to listen
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I'd be really interested to
Yeah.
hear your side of the story. And one Friday evening, we had probably 45 minutes on the phone,
Fair
not
play.
even a resident of mine.
Wow.
And he explained to me why he thought that the development in the HIF
Mm.
would be a good thing.
Mm.
And it was to do with his business
Mm.
and his own economic
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
And he had every right to put that
Yeah.
view forward.
Yeah.
And as a, not even his own councillor, but as a councillor,
Yeah.
my responsibility
Yeah.
was to listen to that. Because if everybody had come to me and say, well, hey Claire, this is going to make a difference for our business or our school or
Yeah.
our whatever,
Yeah.
then I would have had to, it wouldn't have changed my belief about it, but it would have changed the nuances of what I was saying.
Yeah.
This particular person is in a significant, tiny minority of the people that I've spoken to.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to say, that for a video,
Yeah.
but it didn't ultimately affect my overriding response to what
Yeah.
was being said, because
Yeah.
the majority of people were very clear that the environmental carbon impact was significant, the countryside being ruined. I mean, I love walking up and down the Pewsham Canal, it's just near my home, having a flyover over there, flyover over the cycle track. I mean, these are our heritage,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and just to willfully wreck them.
Well, that's
We
again.
have
So where does
farmland
that? Yeah.
that
Yeah.
produces
Those
food.
county
that
farms.
I would love to see our local farms
Go on, say it. So I bet you're saying the same
in the
thing.
market.
I would like to see those local farms, county farms, being places that local young people particularly learn how to grow food, and we had
Exactly.
seasonally grown food that was in our markets, in our schools, in our hospitals, everywhere, in doorway, the homeless projects.
With cookery lessons
There
and
you
all
go.
of that. We
There
could
you go.
really
There you
be
go.
doing good
Totally,
stuff with
we
that.
need to be doing that. We
But
need to
no,
be.
well, if we just draw a circle around
Yeah.
the middle of Chippenham,
Yeah.
it seems to go there. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. It's if it wasn't for the fact that obviously some people are making money out of it, no one in the right mind, particularly if they were looking at the climate breakdown and going, emergency, not climate change, as if it's some sort of like, I went out on Tuesday and I had a jumper, then I had to take it off, it was hot.
Yeah.
No, it's going to be sea rising, death, and if people are worried about people being refugees now.
People are worried about migrants now.
Yeah.
They
They forget it's like dry land is becoming diminished. It's
when
not
half
great.
of Africa becomes uninhabitable.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
those people will have just as much right to live
To dry land.
in this world
Of course, there
as
you
you
go.
and me.
Absolutely, because I think people, they've been
I
indoctrinated.
suppose then we probably will have to build some more houses in Wiltshire.
Well, here's the bit.
or we could stop the problem in the first place.
In the first place, this is the idea. I guess for me, that people forget that it's people that put the names of countries and borders on places, and as if they're written in blood. Well, let's face it. Even in this country, let's just take good old England. How far do you want to go back to the times of the Celts, or do you want to go to Anglo-Saxons, or do you want to come through which our current royal family? I say current. Royal family derived from what the William the Conqueror, isn't it? Imagine that.
Your history is probably marked better than mine.
I don't know. I'm actually quite a really poorly educated. Nothing to do with my teachers. Just me. Look at me. I'm very hard to educate. I'm as dumb as they come. But here's the bit.
But we're right. We're all a right old mix in this country. You know, we've
Totally.
been invaded by Romans,
Yeah.
Celts.
Yeah.
You know, I'm Celtish.
Yeah.
I guess I originated somewhere up the west coast of Spain and France, and landed in Wales, and you know, centuries ago. Obviously,
Yeah, of course.
I don't remember this, but
I don't remember. I mean, it was an afternoon. We went out for a drive.
My art teacher at school said, "Claire, you must be Portuguese." No, I'm Welsh. No, you must. In the end, I had to say, well, yes, I think the milkman was Portuguese, because she could not leave it alone.
A lot of Irish because of the Spanish.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're blown off course, and a lot of the Spanish ended up in Ireland, and there's a place on the south coast called Spanish Point. You look at a load of
and
Irish
it's like,
people.
you know, Bretons and Cornish and
100%.
Welsh, they can all understand each other's
And
languages.
Irish.
Yeah. And I don't. And Iceland, you know, the Iceland and the Irish, there's a bit of similarity in the. In the
definitely their
languages
approach. I went across them, and I felt.
Yeah,
I felt very at home. He said, drinking all night because the sun was out all day. Sure it was. I think that we need to seriously look at our local. Well, we have to do it in a local way. You know, the act locally, think globally idea, which of course remains true to this day. We need to be reimagining what our communities should look like, with the idea that pandemics and stuff are obviously can come out of the blue at any time. So we have to have a society based on actual known need. So for me, that's shelter for everyone, that's fresh water, clean air, the opportunity to have food. And I can't believe that if we have got this amount of land, that we cannot feed and house every single person, not by building loads of new homes necessarily, but looking at what land's been allocated already to building and reimagine buildings that have gone by the wayside, or brownfield sites, or whatever.
Yeah. But I mean,
to legislate for what we've got,
you
as
only
opposed
got
to
to look at this shopping centre, this shopping mall here.
Yeah.
It's really sad to see the number of shops that are empty. I mean, I thank God you found a use for this one.
I don't know about God, but I can certainly thank Eagle One.
All of these chains, they're not going to come back. Half of them are lost. And the other half have learnt how to operate online.
And that was always been talked about. Do you remember when this started to be looked at?
It's just sped it all up.
Well,
I mean, one of my favourite sayings, what has driven transformation in your organisation? The CEO, the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, COVID. Yeah. COVID is the one that's driven the transformation. We're not going to be going back, however much we want to. We've got to find different uses for our town centres, and some of that is residential. This whole section here would be beautiful apartments.
Well, thank you very much. We can call around. No, you're right. I mean, you're right. There's absolutely a way to reimagine what the town centres would be.
We're putting this into the neighbourhood plan. We've tried really hard to think creatively about what we could do with Chippenham in the neighbourhood plan. Just wait till that comes out. And a lot of the Liberal Democrats, I have to say, have been involved in that, because we really love thinking about what is possible.
Absolutely. And so on a grassroots level, as opposed to having these thoughts coming from national governments, which if people haven't got it yet, there's like, really, you have national governments.
So it's so behind.
Totally, isn't it? And they don't care. If they think Boris Johnson, I'm just using Boris as a he took the job. He's got the suit, the ill-fitting suit, and he's got the address. So it's like, you have to take these. If this was a normal time, if COVID hadn't happened, the economy would have been panning. It'd have been gone down again anyway. If you look at pre-2019, you look at how the way the economy was going. In a way, COVID has saved capitalism because now everyone, all the world banks are saying, "Ooh, well, we borrowed, lent this money." It's like, who to? Which human being on this planet? Which human being on this planet is saying, "Well, I've lent everyone all this money to get you through a pandemic, and now you're going to have to pay me back"? Who are these individuals? Personally, tell me where they live. I will go and kick their asses myself. You ain't going to have the money back, you lunatics. Money's not important. People's lives are. Do I make myself clear, Boris? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that is quite scary for me.
But it's interesting what you just saying, because one of the things that the Liberal Democrats want to do is to have a universal income, so everybody just gets paid, and then over the top of that, you do stuff that.
Every single explain it, but really in detail then, because that sounds like a marvellous thing. But
well, I probably can't explain the full.
We might have a little bit of a problem.
How much it's going to be?
No, don't worry about that.
But the idea is that everybody gets paid a universal income, just for being, and that takes out the need for universal credit, benefits, all of that you don't need, because everybody's getting an income.
Yeah.
And then over and above that, you can do stuff that's worthwhile, and you can afford to do stuff that's worthwhile without being paid for it, because your income is there. And so the whole sort of driver of the economy being about how much can I possibly earn goes away. I don't think I'm explaining it very well.
No, but I think...
I haven't got the full technical details.
I get what you're saying. I think that would... So basically, no one can fall through the net.
We've kind of had it this year. When you think what people are, on furlough, that's basically...
Hands up if you don't want 8 weeks off every year and get paid from your own money. Remember, it's your money, people, the tax money. Yeah. Is the idea that the Chancellor of the Exchequer, my hoop... That is our money and our national ability to either lend money. I don't agree with it. I just think that lending money, I don't agree with the economy. The stock market is an absolute coven of completely inhumane principles ran by people that couldn't possibly have an empathetic connection with the rest of humanity. Yeah. These shorts. Watch The Big Short, everyone. If you want to really be educated on what the stock market's, watch the film The Big Short. It explains it in the most basic ways possible and in an entertaining and engaging way. Have you ever seen it?
No.
If you ever want to know about it, you want to know why the subprime market thing happened, it is disgraceful. Yeah. And it's still happening. How come those people haven't been arrested and put in prison? All of them. Each person that had anything to do, instead of getting the bonuses and stuff, every person. So you deliberately did this. There you go. Who runs the system? There you go. Who runs the system? And it's not the politicians. We all know that, right? So it's not the politicians. So if it's not the politicians, it's these multinationals. They are human beings. Somewhere along the line, I'm not going to say it's one person or the other, but it's Davos and it's the Bilderberg group and all those other people that sit around going, how are we going to milk the masses this week? If you look at the whole process of how and who runs the stock market, you can see that it benefits very few, really benefits a few people. Don't know where that's going. Ross Henning's back. When Ross...
Here's trouble.
It is, that's it. Here is trouble. So you're saying that you as a group have got these really good ideas for the new plans for Chippenham. How would people get hold of them? How would they? And this is going to be before the elections. How are people going to the Chippenham plan? When is that coming out?
So, we have a plan for Wiltshire. Yeah. Which I know you've got sight of because you've got a copy of it on the table. The Liberal Democratic pamphlet, we're using that to prop the table up. That's fine. I'm joking. And then, obviously, we adapt that for Chippenham. Yeah. So, when we talk about health and social care, for example, we don't want to do something different in Chippenham to the rest of Wiltshire. It's a system that connects up where nobody's an island.
Except the Irish.
Well, Britain's an island, I suppose, but stuff like that can't happen
in
at
isolation.
at such a micro level. You could be. I mean, we could talk about, say, Chippenham Hospital. No, we can't close that because we actually need to look at health and social care as a much bigger system. One doctor's surgery or one physiotherapy clinic or whatever it is doesn't make sense to make decisions about that on a very, very local level. We need to understand what that GP surgery or physiotherapy clinic or whatever it is means to the local community and take that into account. Not that the council makes decisions about how health care is provided, that's down to the clinical commissioning group and ultimately NHS England. And I'm only talking about that because obviously that's my background, but the principle is the same. If we're making decisions about education or transport or anything like that, we need to look at the whole picture. South West, I mean, I'd love to support the reopening of Corsham Station, for example.
What about one in Cairn as well?
That would make perfect sense. Corsham has got a railway going right the way through it.
What about the one between here and Cairn?
Well, it's a lovely cycle track now, isn't it?
Well, no, but I mean, I definitely still have a cycle track. But here's my point: if we were to, if we were to reinvest in public transport, here's my reason. I'm on about to deliver cargo as well. So take loads of lorries off roads. Take the need for, Russell love this, any distributor roads or any roads being built at all, because the actual problem is pollution. It's the cars we use. So it's not about the economy. It's like that's an illusion. You need to cut down on the use of cars. You need to look at how we have an infrastructure that links up the good people of all over Wiltshire, then the good people of Wiltshire to surrounding counties and so on and so forth. The existing motorways which are already there, I guess we would.
If we build more roads, then more people drive on them. But if we build more rail stations, then people don't have to drive so far to get to the
see. Here's the thing. If we were going to take the climate emergency, climate breakdown seriously, you'd have to say to people, guess what? Everyone can't have cars. Guess what? You can't use cars that have fossil fuels. Guess what? You can't. If you do, you can only use them on certain days, and you can't use them for leisure.
Like in Athens, they did that years ago, didn't they?
They'd have to, because why? Because exactly. So we should and could do that. So the idea of we've got all these lorries and trucks. No, we haven't, because they're not allowed to come through the towns. What do you mean? You'd have to have a different way of getting the goods, if there is in the centre of towns like this any reason to have shops and stuff, because as you said, these places are going to be reimagined, because if people aren't coming into the centre of towns to shop for sometimes meaningless whatever, they're going to have to do it, they're going to come to the centre of towns for something else. Well, leisure or social cohesion is really important.
And there are shops, there's sort of independents like Bay Tree, shops like that. People want to go to places
Cousin
like
Norman's.
that. Brilliant example. That are a bit of a destination in their own right. They're nice because they've got quirky stuff in them. The people in them are going to talk to each other. Town centres are for places like that, and for services. I know we've got a lot of hairdressers and vape shops and all of that, but
they should be combined.
Yeah.
Do we know that? I don't know.
But, retail has changed, and it isn't going to go back. So we need to stop thinking now that it will, and find stuff that people do want. People moan about too many charity shops and vape shops in the town centre. They moan that there isn't moan isn't a good word. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. They notice and they comment that all the supermarkets and all the petrol stations are on one side of Chippenham and not the other, and that, frankly, that probably contributes to the traffic as much as anything. So we need to be a little bit more directive in in that. It's really difficult because we can't drive the market as a council,
No.
but we could make it easier to not keep repeating. There's about at least 2, probably 3 petrol stations in the Bath Road down by Sainsbury's.
Yeah.
Sort of there. Why are they all together? And then you've got the is it S.O.P, Shell, can't remember, and Morrison's across the road from each other.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Nothing over.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's retrograde anyway. Just get rid of your petrol stations because
build them with plug-in.
Well, whatever we're going to do, but we've got to really reimagine
and
everything.
Tanks, because that's another possible.
Maybe, absolutely. Whatever it is, it cannot be fossil fuels, and it cannot be distributor roads. Right.
I want to join in.
We should have I think we should definitely have a hustings scenario online, by the way, because there's not going to be any hustings, is there, for this?
No, we did hustings at the point we select the candidates get selected.
Yeah, but we don't normally have a free for all where all the councillors who are standing for election are in there. Hi.
Why not?
Butting in.
Why not? I could do it on Zoom easy. Why not?
You could do. I mean, they're trying to set up hustings for the Police and Crime Commission because that's a lot more focused and it's quite easy. But actually, it's not that easy to get everybody to agree to do it.
And we do it at sort of a micro level when we're selecting new candidates for a division. Part of the process because we obviously want to make sure that the candidates that we have are up to the job.
Well, I've interviewed most of your candidates. You've got a great team. It's everyone else I'm worried about. I mean, serious. Seriously, from an organisational point, a sustainable development organisational point, we've only done this, I guess. I mean, I just wanted to talk to. It started off just talking to Ross about loads of things. It went on, truthfully, for 4 hours.
I can imagine.
It's not his fault.
I turned mine off.
Yeah, I'll take at minimum half the blame. Partly, and this is the interesting thing. Partly is because what he was saying was really interesting. So we actually have a conversation. It wasn't till we tried to edit it, and we didn't get to talk about the. Youth offending or the youth justice and all that sort of stuff that's been involved with. So I'll come back again. We ended up having a 4-hour interview that when we try to cut it into two, all the sounds went, the sync went, but it goes on and on. So that's why we've asked him back today because it's like, oh my God.
And I've got a list today and we're going to stick to it.
Because Maya said,
we spent too much time talking about football.
Well, not enough time, I think, but it worked, didn't it?
So good luck with the editing.
Right, well, no, it's these
good.
fine people. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to say thank you to you, Claire.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you.
It's been fun. You made it really easy.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad because I think, as I said, we've had Teresa Hutton. She was marvellous. Pete Hutton. So 2 Conservatives, I've spoken to Michelle Donlan, bless her, and I want more Conservatives to come on this. Not because I want to berate them personally, I do want them to explain to me why they think they're Conservatives. That's just a personal thing.
That would be interesting.
I mean, for me, seriously, I mean, not being rude, I just kind of like, really? I do the same thing with people who say they're
about that colleague of mine,
yeah.
You know?
Yes, absolutely. I've no friends of mine that represented the Conservatives. And now they're not friends. I'm joking, they still are. No, they're not. Yes, they are. I'm joking still. You're fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now we're going to hand over to you know who.
Good luck with that.
I'm going to have to stand up and stretch for a while. Clap.
Correct.
Thank you, Claire. You're great.
That was good.